Alright, and to continue, it looks like underneath this part of the leg here, we've got a little bit of a hinge joint right in here, so we're going to go ahead and put a cylinder object in there. We'll go to our create, into our geometry, into a cylinder, switch over to a right view, and we can tell the arm's getting in the way right in here. So let's go ahead and clear some of that out. I'm just going to group those together, and we'll hide that selection. There we go. And then back over to our view. And this is really about midway in here. Is right underneath this piece. We've got some multi-layering going on. So we're going to have a piece that comes right in here. We're going to have another one that comes on the inside here, and then we're going to wrap it with our metal plating or little armor piece that goes across there. So let's start with this one. Let's make a quick look at it in a front view. Let's see if we can get it kind of close to about the width that we want. So somewhere in there should be just fine for our needs. I'm going to go ahead and set our material and our edge color. Of course, you could always go in and select multiple pieces at one time and change those up. I'm doing that just out of habit. Okay, I'm just going to scale this guy up, and we'll make a copy of that one. And in fact, let's scale this guy up a little bit more, right about in there. And this will give us a chance to use another tool. We're going to use a boolean, or in Texas we'd like to say a boolean. So let's see if we can cut out this shape from this one. This is going to be the little arm piece that comes down. So I'm going to take my outside piece, I'm going to go to my Create tab, and then in my list I'm going to go down to my Compound Objects. In my Compound Objects, that's where I'm going to find my boolean, and I'm going to select on the boolean. It's going to ask me to pick the operand B. This is the second piece, the piece that we're going to use to cut out of the other. So I'm going to click on this one, then I'm going to hover on top of the one I want to use, left click on that. It's going to cut that shape out for me. Nice and simple. Now, if we actually want this piece, which we do, before we make that happen, let's make sure we've got a copy of this one to hang on to. And here we go. There we are. Shrink that guy back down a little bit. And there we go. Now the next part of that would be an arm piece that goes up. So I'm going to go to my Modify tab and down to our Edit Poly. You can use the keyboard to jump through alphabetically. And we're just going to extrude this up. There we go. And let's go ahead and planar the top of it. There we go. So we got a nice little arm piece, we've got a nice little rotating piece there, and the width of this object, it does need to be encapsulated by another piece, so we're going to thin this up a little bit. I'm going to go back over here, we'll set that one, we'll go to our Hierarchy tab, and in our Hierarchy tab we're just going to affect it, go to center, squash that up just a little bit there. Go to a front view so we can see this a little better. There we go. We'll pop over to our perspective view. Alright, so this is about the thigh piece that's coming out that's going to get wrapped around with some plating, but at least it gives us a bearing for the rest of it. And in fact, we could even just use this one for the bottom piece as well. So I'm just going to move this one around. Now you notice some of what I'm doing is just making some decisions on as I'm going. So keep in mind that there's always some room, especially when you're just practicing and working, to make some decisions as you go. There we go. And here we get a nice little shape. We'll pull that one down. So we've got a nice shape on the top, got a nice shape down here on the bottom that'll connect into our leg, and most of that's going to be hidden by, or down to our feet, which is pretty much hidden by the little boot piece that goes on there. Alright, so let's zoom out a little bit so we can get a sense of the shape we've got and the armor that's going to go around it. So for the armor, let's go ahead and start with, let's do our little knee plate first, because that's going to cover up most of this shape right in here. It's going to come under it just a little. It's going to curve up and over on the knee, and then back down and around. Now, getting that shape, we could start with a sphere, we could start with a cylinder, or we could even just start with a box. A lot of those decisions just based on experience, preference. A little bit of both. But what I would usually suggest is take your time to make it using multiple shapes so that you become familiar with how that basic shape is going to affect your outcome and or affect the speed at which you're going to create an object. A lot of times you're looking at reducing the number of clicks during your working cycle just so that you can do your job faster and better. There we go. We're just going to take this and we're going to create a nice little push out. So we have the curve that we want right in here. We have a nice little straight back. We could always chamfer those, but because we're doing some subdivision throughout, I'm going to do another connection. And we're just going to do one. And we could slide it right in there. We're just pushing it off to the side just a little bit. And we're also going to planar it. There we go, along the X, or I mean along the Z. So we have a nice straight edge loop that goes around. Instead of, what happens is it's going to take some of that form, so we want to straighten that out. Alright, so I'm going to take this front section and just pull that in a little bit. There we go. We get a nice little shape curving around there. The next part of that shape that we want to work on is right in here at the top. We want this one to actually come down. So we have a nice little sweeping line going up. And then with this one we're going to soften that line so that we can see a nice little line come down and around. There we go. And on the bottom piece in here, if we wanted to, we could pull this down just a little bit so that we break up some of that straight edge that's there. Alright, the only other thing we could do is we could flatten this out just a little bit more. There we go, somewhere in there. Okay, with that basic shape there, I want to just round out the front of our object. So, using a different tool, we're going to go into our slice plane and our edit geometry. I'm just going to rotate this one around, position it where I want it. We'll get it somewhere right around in there. Click on the slice, and that's going to set the slice in. Unselect the slice plane, deactivate it, and there we have our geometry added to our edges. And what we want to do is we're just going to raise this up a little bit, down a little bit. We're going to raise this front piece up just a little. There we go. A little bit more to the center. A little bit down. There we go. And this is just to round out the front. So we're just taking the geometry and then just pulling it where we want it. And we can pull out these just a little bit in here and a little bit in here. And the main thing to keep in mind, this is all about taking the geometry you've got, shaping it up to make it look like what you want. And if you need more geometry to get that shape, then just keep on adding geometry until you shape it out. Considering that we're working with a little bit more of a low poly object with the ability to subdivide it up, you do want to focus on the major plane changes. We'll go with our group normals. You're looking to make sure that you are focusing in on a definite change in that surface, those planar changes there. Because if we don't have much of a change, then you don't want to just waste geometry in those areas. You want to make sure that there is some serious definition to it. So in here you can tell that we're just going up, we're going over. We're just going to capture that little lip that comes over. We've got the nice curve on the front. And then we've got it ending over in here. Alright, we're looking pretty good. The other little piece that we could do if we wanted, I believe I'm going to keep this model as this part as an airtight. We could go through if we wanted to and make it as more of a piece that comes down and around. For instance, we could get rid of this in here and then block in those pieces. It's definitely an option. It's not an option that I want to take right now. I'd rather go ahead and get the other pieces in place first and then find out if it's what we want to do. Alright, so that gets me the kneecap in here, and then we've got a little shin piece and a little ankle piece at the bottom. We've got this little shin piece and this little ankle piece around the foot. Let's go ahead and get this guy in and this guy in, and then we'll tackle the foot. So this guy is pretty much a lot like its counterpart above it, so I'm just going to make a copy of it. And what I really want to do is simply see if we can use this shape that we made and get a little extra use out of it. We can tell that we're probably not going to need quite as much on the front because we're just a little bit softer of a shape, a little bit more of a band that's just going around it. So we're just going to move this shape up, set it in a little bit better there. And let's take a peek in the perspective view to see what we've got. Okay, we're looking pretty good. That's a nice little piece, keeps the leg nice and tight. Now we just need a little cover plating that goes around it. And that cover plating that's going to go around is really going to cover all the way around. And considering the number of sides that we have, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's an 8-sided shape. So I'm going to go ahead and just use a cylinder. Go into a top view. And let's see if we can define it. We're somewhere in here, right? So let's go ahead and just do, somewhere about there. We'll pull up a little bit. Left click up, right click to end it. Go into a perspective, find our shape. Let's just move this guy up. Alright, so we know that we need to be bigger than the shape underneath. And we know we're going to come down, back up and over, and that we want to connect, not quite connect, but we do want to be an in-between right in here. I mean, we do have a little bit of a disconnect here, so let's go ahead and just move this guy up. We can tell that we've got some room, so I'm going to go ahead and do my attach option and just select both of these guys, move them up, and let's go ahead and select our bottom one here. We do need these to all fit tight together, so let's go ahead and squeeze these in, move these over just a little bit. And it looks like we're pretty close. Just move this over a little bit more. So we're underneath it well enough. And let's get this object set up. Just apply a material. Remember, M is your shortcut key on that one. Okay. Now we do have a flat area in the front, which means that we really need to adjust the rotation of our cylinder. I'm going to take my angle snaps off so that I can get a little bit closer. There we go. Alright, let's go ahead and scale this guy in just a little so we can tell it's somewhere in here, and it's going to taper out a little bit at the base of it. I'm going to go ahead and add an additional height segment. That way I don't have to do anything extra on my editing, and we can add an edit poly, or we can just right click and do editable mesh. We're converting to. So we start off with our vertex at the base of our modifier stack, and we know we're going to have a little bit of a flaring out right here. So I'm going to flare it out. I'm going to get rid of these front and back. We're going to pull this down just a little. Take a peek at our perspective. Nice. We got a good little shape right there. We do have it coming back up, but you know we could even make that come back up even more so. I'm just going to shape this a little bit tighter. Pull this one up. Let's see what we look like if we go up here. We could pull our shape back. We're looking for something where we have a little more of a up and around shape to it. If we keep this one down, we get that pull up, which isn't too bad. I kind of like that shape. It looks pretty cool. So I think I want a little bit more out of that, so I'm going to go ahead and do add some extra geometry. So just select those edges and then go and use our connect option, and we're just making a new edge loop around there. And then this time around, we'll just select on each one of these, but this gives us a nice straight shot before we go up. There we go. We'll pull that back just a little. That's a little more like it. We've got a good front piece right in here. We'll pull that up. A nice little down piece up and around. So we're looking pretty good like that. The one thing that we aren't connected is this shape to this shape. So let's go ahead and pull this guy back. We know he needs to be back in there a little bit more so that we can connect him right. The one thing you'll notice, we're going to rotate around a lot. We're always trying to get a good view of what we're working on. We want to keep our eyes on the many different angles that our model is going to be seen in, so that we can work at creating a good solid model all the way around. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick set of edge loops around. I'm just going to go to my poly mode, select on the two top polys, do an extrusion, pull it down a little bit tighter, do an inset, and if you can't quite get the inset where you want it, just scale it in and out. There we go. Just want a nice tight line right in there. And then at the base here, in fact, a couple things that we can do. You'll notice right in here that we're going to disappear some, and what happens is there's some edges that aren't being drawn, and we can turn those. So if I go into my edge mode and I go to turn, you can see how that edge is actually set in. So what we want to do is we want that edge going with us and that geometry not caving in right in there. So we can flip some of these edges as we go through and look at the model. We can see how that one's flipped there. Alright, just as a quick look at it, that looks pretty good. And we can also make a quick cut. So I'm just going to cut and define an edge in a particular direction so that I get the geometry flowing the way I want it to flow. Same with right in here. We're just cutting that one right in, and when we cut that one in, we get the geometry going where we want it. Alright, now back to our polys and a real simple extrusion out and or bevel out. Let's see. This one's going to give us a nice little straight down. I'm going to hit plus on that one because I want to do one more, but I don't really want to go out very much. I just want to go in. And let's take that a little bit closer, a little bit out. Whoop. Not quite that many. Click check on that. There we go. Nice little shape. And we can take a quick peek with a turbo smooth, subdividing it up. So I'll do a turbo smooth on it. My isoline display. There we go. Got a nice little shape right in there. Alright, so we've got our knee pad, a little shin piece, we've got our upper thigh piece, and then the next thing we'll do is cover around the ankle and the foot. We'll do that next.